Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is the 8th session of the YUS Show with Yulin, Yuldis, and Steve Roddy, who Professor Roddy is not here with us today, but he is here in spirit. So Yulin and I decided to talk about a very famous Chinese philosopher by the name of Zhuangzi. And so he has some very rich insights, and so we'll talk about that. And then I'll also add a couple of minutes about International Peace Day, which happened yesterday on September 21st, an important day. So we should commemorate that. So Yulin will begin by talking about Zhuangzi, who he was, and his main ideas. Yulin, please go ahead.
Well, thank you. Our YUS show, the youth show, the key is about friendship. What I realized that many of us really know about the Western philosophers very well, but perhaps not that many people know about the Chinese philosophers. Although from what I learned is, especially from the Department of History, students are really passionate about learning about Zhuangzi. So this is to pay a tribute to Zhuangzi. We are going to, let's see. Okay. So I have a little bit of, let me see. I'm going to try to show screen. Okay. So one of the famous stories about Zhuangzi is Bao Ding Jie Niu. So I don't know whether you recognize this photo. So it is said that this is one of the Zhuangzi story. Bao Ding, who is a butcher, he is very famous. So he performed how to dissect a cow in front of the king one day, and it was so quick. He told the king that usually a butcher would need to replace a knife every month. A good one perhaps would need to replace a knife like 3 months or half a year, but or even sometimes as lasting as long as like 3 years. But his knife, he has been using it for 19 years. You might wonder, wow, why he would be able to do that. He explained that he uses, because he doesn't see a cow, he sees the structure of the cow. He only uses knife at the joints where he very skillfully, he knows how to cut very skillfully. So from this, we can see that's really Zhuangzi philosophy is about. So from Zhuangzi's perspective, there are three keys for best life experiences. Number one is that it's important to have interest in soul, just be true to yourself. And secondly, pursuit of freedom. And third, beyond the worldly possessions. So what are the worldly possessions? Money, house, cars, all those good things. But he said that, really the worldly possessions is good, but on the other hand, our spirit should go beyond the worldly possessions. Let go of worries, let go of whatever that's bothering you. And he specifically has those four, 其是非, 其物我, 其美丑, 其生死. Those four are really the summary of his philosophies. What this means is that, there's nothing wrong or right in the world. Whatever that's in the world, they are the same. Whether it's right or wrong, they are the same. That's the first point. The second point, it's mine or yours, it's all ours. They are the same. There's no difference between yours and mine. So that's the second point. The third is no beauty or no ugly, they are the same, because that's what nature intends to have. There's no life or death. It's all things in the world. It's just in different format. So that's very much his philosophy in those 4 points. He pursues beauty, nature, just be yourself. This is his ideal lifestyle, just like a bird. Live freely in nature, enjoy the beauty of the mountains, the rivers, and with friends, enjoy the world. Just be yourself. Dao, that's where the Dao is. So his dialectic is famous, which reminded me of another philosopher, Socrates. Regarding Socrates, one of his famous Socratic method, we have 11 points here listing the differences between a dialogue and a debate. So I thought it would be very cool to share the first couple of differences. For example, a dialogue is collaborative. Multiple sides work toward a shared understanding. In dialogue, one listens to understand, to make meaning, and to find common grounds. Versus in a debate, it is competitive or oppositional. Two opposing sides try to prove each other wrong. In debate, one listens to find the flaws, to spot differences, and to counter arguments. YUS show, the YUS show, is about friendship. So I thought that it's important for us to remind ourselves the importance of engaging in dialogue instead of like confrontational debate. In friendship, it's about sharing, pursuit, truth, pursuit, freedom, pursuit what's important to the world, to each one of us. That's what friends are for.
Well said, you, and I completely agree. It's about friendship and understanding and mutual gain, mutual benefit. So yes. Well, I also was very impressed with Yulin's choice of Zhuangzi. I'm a teacher, and I've been teaching Chinese history for a while, and so I put together a PowerPoint. And here, let's see, can I go to my PowerPoint? Where is my PowerPoint? Here we go. Here we go. All right. I hope the PowerPoint is showing here on the screen. So let me talk about Zhuangzi. Now, these are the dates for Zhuangzi. You can tell I'm a historian because historians love these dates. So about 2,400 years ago. One of my biggest surprises when I have been a teacher of Chinese history and Japanese history is that students really respond very well to Zhuangzi. Part of it is that he's very different from Confucius, who's very linear in his narrative. Zhuangzi is very different. He thinks more in terms of poetry and of oppositional categories, but which are in some ways united. And Zhuangzi is part of the Taoist tradition, which is also a very important part of the Chinese philosophical tradition. Another area where there's some interest on the part of my students is that Zhuangzi is seemingly very different. He's iconoclastic. He breaks the mold of thinking because he poses puzzles and he tells a lot of parables. So it's kind of out of the box. We say out of the box thinking. Now his most fundamental methodology is dialectics, the unity of opposites and how they can exist only in opposition to each other, like beauty and ugliness. Can beauty exist without ugliness? No. Ugliness, can it exist without, they're part. So in other words, they're different, but yet in some ways they're the same. So it's a paradox. It's seemingly different, but then seemingly also the same, and then seemingly not the same. So it's a very different kind of thinking, dialectical thinking. And Zhuangzi, for me, shows the complexity and richness of Chinese philosophy as early as 2,400 years ago. So the Chinese came up with a lot of ideas which really have enriched all of humanity, especially, of course, the Chinese, but now more so the global context. Now, as a historian, I often ask my students, why did Chinese thinkers become so philosophical around this time, 2,500 years ago? And it's because of the Warring States period. And this type of thinking was cultivated by political rulers. Political rulers wanted to have people help them think through their problems, think through the chaos, and what would be a good life, what is the life that's worth living, and so on. And so they sought help from intellectuals, and they wanted these intellectuals to help them survive and also conquer other states, either through hard power or through soft power. So they promoted things like Confucianism, because Confucius taught benevolence. They promoted people like Sun Tzu, who promoted ideas of warfare. and things like that. So so this was one of the reasons that Zhuangzi appears at this particular time, not 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, but roughly in the time of the Warring States period. So he's a product of his time. And was nurtured by the political leaders of the time for their own interests. But we have the benefit of his insights today. We don't have to worry about the Warring States period, although in some ways we also have Warring States. What are some of the key ideas? And probably the most, one of the more important ideas is this idea of wu wei, or inaction. And political leaders in some ways really like that because they wouldn't have to be hands-on. They could sort of sit back, let other people do the hard work, the heavy lifting, as we would say, but we just sort of sit back and let other people do it. And in this inaction way, everything would be done. So this is crucial, but also to be natural, to be spontaneous, to think outside the box, to be free. And so this also appealed to the leaders of that time. So they listened to Zhuangzi, kept his books, and the books have been retained. And Emperor Xuanzong of the Tang Dynasty, in fact, enshrined the Dao De Jing. The Dao De Jing is the key document of Zhuangzi, and the emperor himself read it and said, "This is great stuff." So we need to preserve this. So from the Tang Dynasty, from the 8th century onward, it became part of this traditional heritage. Now, let me shift a little bit to another project, and that is yesterday was International Peace Day. And as I was preparing this, I thought, well, it's important to recognize this because we don't think about peace often enough. We think about friendship and food and things like that and war, but what about peace? How can we bring about peace? While on the one hand, it's idealistic, on the other hand, it's also something that's very, very necessary. So the United Nations actually enshrined this in 1981 as International Peace Day. And this theme is to end racism. So racism is in some ways also attached to war and looking down on people and enslaving them and so on and so forth. So you have to build a peaceful environment by ending racism. Racism is one of the things that holds back peace. And in my own case, I became very active in the peace movement. So peace for me was not just idealistic, but real. And so it's not just one day, it became part of my life. So I'd like to end here. Our time is somewhat up, and I haven't given Yulin a chance to really say too much right now. So maybe Yulin would also like to add something in our conclusion.
Well, thank you, Professor Cruz. We are just very fortunate that we have Professor Cruz to share from a historical perspective. Absolutely, it's important that the reason that we start this show is because we share a common understanding on friendship. And the racism, definitely, it's so important to build a world of peace, to build inner peace as well. So I often remember Churchill. What he said is that he was quoted as saying that, when I was young, I pursued freedom. When I became middle-aged, I pursue self-discipline. And when I become older, what I realized that, wow, self-discipline is actually freedom. So recalling what Zhuangzi's Taoism, pursue things out of the ordinary, beyond the worldly possessions, pursue freedom, and enjoy the world with our friends, together with Socrates sharing let's have a healthy discussion, and then enjoy the friendship, enjoy each other. So those are very important. Let's have dialogue, not debate, to build friendship. So maybe we can end the PowerPoints so that we can we can
Yes.
welcome next month join us.
Yes. Good. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.